We tend to think of history as a neat and tidy timeline, a series of events that logically follow one another. But sometimes history is just weird. It's chaotic, unpredictable, and every once in a while it throws up a day so packed with drama, it feels like it was written for a movie. What if I told you that on a single day, July 11th, a sitting vice president of the United States shot and killed his biggest political rival in a duel, and that on that exact same calendar day, a powerful king was overthrown in a massive bloody battle? These aren't storylines from a historical novel. They're the unbelievable but true events that all happened on this one day, and they'll completely change how you see the past. It's a day that also saw NASA's first space station, the 82-ton Skylab, come crashing back to Earth across the Australian outback. It's the day that gave us Babe Ruth's Major League debut. But the two stories we're focusing on today are stranger than any fiction. They are tales of power, betrayal, and bloodshed, separated by an ocean and more than 100 years, but forever linked by the calendar. We'll start in the early days of the American Republic, where a feud between two of its most powerful men would be settled not with words, but with pistols at dawn. The year is 1804. The United States is a young, fragile nation still figuring itself out. Its leaders were giants of history, but they were also deeply flawed, ambitious men. Two of the most powerful were Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury, was a brilliant and fiery Federalist who had literally built the nation's economy. Aaron Burr, the sitting vice president, was a cunning political operator, a master of the game. For more than a decade, these two had been locked in a bitter rivalry. It all started back in 1791 when Burr snatched a U.S. Senate seat from Hamilton's own father-in-law, a move Hamilton took as a direct personal attack. Their feud just got worse from there. Hamilton famously worked behind the scenes to make sure Thomas Jefferson, not Burr, won the presidency in the tied election of 1800. It was a slight Burr would never forgive. The breaking point came in 1804. After being dropped from Jefferson's ticket, Burr ran for governor of New York to try and salvage his career. Hamilton, who saw Burr as a dangerous and unprincipled man, worked tirelessly to make sure he lost, and he did. Burr's political life was in ruins. During the campaign, a newspaper published a letter that mentioned a dinner party where Hamilton had supposedly called Burr despicable. For Burr, this was the ultimate insult. In the rigid culture of honor of that time, a man's reputation was everything. To have it trashed in public was a stain that could only be washed away with an apology, or with blood. Burr demanded Hamilton take it back, but Hamilton was trapped. He couldn't apologize for saying something he believed was true, but he also couldn't refuse a duel without being branded a coward, which would have ended his own public life. After a tense back and forth through letters, it was settled. They would meet at the dueling grounds. At dawn on July 11, 1804, two boats rowed across the Hudson River to a secluded ledge in Weehawken, New Jersey. Dueling was illegal, and this spot was chosen because the punishments were less severe there. In a heartbreaking twist of fate, it was the very same spot where Hamilton's eldest son, Philip, had been killed in a duel just 3 years earlier. defending his father's name. The seconds, the duel referees, made the arrangements. 10 paces were measured out. The pistols were loaded. The men took their positions. According to Hamilton's second, Hamilton had decided beforehand to throw away his shot, meaning he would intentionally miss. He had moral objections to dueling but felt he had no way out. When the command was given, 2 shots rang out. Hamilton fired first. His bullet hitting a tree branch above Burr's head. Whether he missed on purpose or if his gun went off after he was hit, we'll never know. But Burr's aim was perfect. His shot hit Hamilton in the stomach, tearing through his liver and lodging in his spine. Hamilton collapsed. He was rowed back to a friend's house in Manhattan, where he suffered for more than 30 hours before dying the next day. The nation was shocked and thrown into mourning. The duel was a disaster for everyone. It ended Hamilton's life, but it also destroyed Aaron Burr's career. He was charged with murder, though the charges were eventually dropped, and became a political pariah. The sitting Vice President of the United States had killed one of its founding fathers. It was a bizarre, shocking event that revealed the brutal reality hiding behind the noble ideals of the young country. But while a political rivalry was reaching its fatal conclusion in America, an even bigger power struggle was being decided with cannons and cavalry across the ocean. On the very same day on the calendar, just over a century earlier, 2 kings would fight for 3 thrones in a battle that would decide the fate of a continent. Let's go back to July 11, 1690, to the banks of a river in Ireland. The year is 1690, and Europe is a powder keg of religious conflict and political games. The story really begins 2 years earlier, with the Glorious Revolution in England. Basically, the Protestant Dutch Prince William of Orange was invited to take the English throne from the Catholic King James II. James fled to France and then to Ireland, a Catholic stronghold, to raise an army and win back his crowns. This set the stage for a massive showdown. On one side you had King William III, a tough and experienced military commander leading a huge multinational army of about 36,000 English, Scottish, Dutch, and Danish soldiers. On the other side was the deposed King James II, with a smaller, less experienced but fiercely loyal Jacobite army of about 25,000 Irish Catholics and French troops. The stakes couldn't have been higher, for William winning in Ireland would secure his throne and cement Protestant power. For James and his Irish supporters, this was a fight for their religion, their land, and Irish freedom itself. The 2 armies finally met at the River Boyne, just north of Dublin. William, always the professional soldier, was scouting the river crossings the day before the battle when Jacobite artillery spotted him and opened fire, wounding him in the shoulder. He just brushed it off and prepared his men for the attack. The battle kicked off on the morning of July 1st by the old calendar, which is July 11th on the modern one we use today. It was the largest battle ever fought on Irish soil. William's plan was genius. He sent a large part of his army on a long march to cross the river at a different spot, faking a flanking maneuver. James, fearing he was about to be surrounded, fell for it completely. He sent almost 2/3 of his army, including his best troops and most of his cannons, to stop the fake threat. This left the main crossing point dangerously weakened. As James's best troops were stuck in a standoff miles away, William launched his real attack. His elite Dutch Blue Guards charged straight into the River Boyne, holding their muskets over their heads as they waded through the water under intense fire. The fighting in the river and on its banks was absolutely brutal. But the most unbelievable part of this whole story, King James II himself. While his soldiers were fighting and dying for him, he was watching from a hill. And as soon as the battle started to turn against him, he lost his nerve. Convinced it was all over, he abandoned his army and fled, riding hard for Dublin and then sailing into exile in France, never to return. His Irish followers were so disgusted by his cowardice that they gave him the nickname Seamus and Chaka, which politely translates to James the Coward. Even though the Jacobite army was beaten, it wasn't destroyed and managed to retreat. But the battle was a massive psychological victory for William. James's cowardly flight shattered his army's morale and ended any real hope he had of reclaiming his throne. The Battle of the Boyne secured the Glorious Revolution, and its legacy still echoes in the politics of Northern Ireland to this day. So, on a single day, July 11th, you have two incredibly dramatic and violent events that changed the course of their nations forever. An American vice president kills a founding father in a duel, and an English king is defeated in a battle that seals his fate and reshapes the future of Great Britain and Ireland. These events are a powerful reminder that history isn't just a boring list of dates. It's a tapestry woven from human passion, ambition, honor, and betrayal. A single day on the calendar can hold stories so wild they challenge everything we think we know about the past. It shows that underneath the grand story of nations and empires are the deeply personal, often violent, and always fascinating stories of the people who lived them. What's the most bizarre historical event you've ever heard of? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear what strange pieces of history fascinate you. If you found these stories as unbelievable as we did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more dives into the weirdest corners of history. Thanks for watching.